Hi Harshvardhan, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I am great. How is it going for you so far?
Pretty good. Pretty excited for this.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so let's quickly jump into the case, and this is going to be a short one.
Sure.
The problem is that there is a senior associate at BCG, and he's really bored
Hmm.
of his lifestyle. You've been approached to find out possible solutions to reduce his boredom.
Understood. Sure. So before structuring the case, I had a couple of preliminary questions and would be happy to know that. So firstly, I wanted to know the kind of work that this person does and the kind of course, he works at BCG. And so basically the kind of work that he does, and is the problem of boredom also faced by other colleagues or the people that he works with?
Right. He faces this problem on his own. His colleagues don't share this problem. So it's more of a personal problem, if you could say it that way. And
Hmm.
With regard to the work, he's a consultant. As mentioned, he's a senior associate at BCG.
Sure. Also, I wanted to know the time frame as to how long has he been feeling bored and if it's a recent phenomenon or not.
It's quite recent. So he actually joined BCG as senior associate very recently, 2 months ago, and he's been like pretty bored since then.
Understood, understood. So I have a fair idea. Got it. Just give me a couple of seconds to sort of fair out my thoughts.
Okay.
So, starting off, the way I think about this case is that boredom is essentially the lack of interest or a lack of stimulation, basically, in the things that we do every day. So, um, it can stem from the fact that we have a pretty monotonous life and things are not happening as they were meant to. Specifically in this case, since you said that he has joined BCG recently 2 months back, also could you please tell me that before joining BCG, was he in a student atmosphere, or was he in a college, or was he working in another firm?
So that is a very interesting point that you brought up, saying what does boredom actually mean? That is great. Yes, it does mean that the activities that he's doing aren't stimulating enough for him. It also means that he's not enjoying every day of his life or some days of his life. That is essentially what we mean in this
Hmm.
case. Coming to what he was doing before, he had a student life before this. He was doing his executive MBA from a reputed college in India.
Got it. Understood. So that clarifies a lot of things. Since he was a student before this, and ever since he has joined BCG as a senior associate, he has been bored. So that means that there must have been some differences in his lifestyle or in his life, which were there as a student and which he is not able to continue as an associate at BCG. So if that's a fair point to think upon, I'll go on and probably try to structure the kind of reasons or the differences between a student life and an associate life.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a fair pathway to take. You can do that.
Sure. Just give me a moment to sort of lay out a structure.
Okay. Can you walk me through what you're thinking?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, I have tried to bifurcate the things that he did as a student, which might not be present in his life, and they might be causing him boredom, into academic and non-academic activities, right? Within the academic activities, so my approach would be to talk about the academic reasons first, and if they do not work out, then shift to the non-academic ones. So talking about the academic reasons or the things, there can be the subjects or the studies which he did inside the classroom and things related to that. There can be the projects which he indulged in, and there can also be some competitions or the seminars which he used to attend in the college, which he is not able to find time for right now.
Okay, fair.
So,
But yeah,
so any of these the reasons, and any of these are the points of difference?
yeah, obviously all of these things don't happen outside of an academic setting. So obviously all of these things are not happening to him now. Is that what you're asking?
So, it's what I meant by not happening and happening was that there is essentially some element of interest which is there in each of these activities, which I
Mhm.
have mentioned. For example, as a student, I took a lot of interest in a strategy subject, or let's
Mhm.
say in a finance subject. And if I am able to apply the same concept in my work life, I might not have the same thing, but I can be rewarded, or my mind can be stimulated in a similar manner. So that is essentially what I meant by him. Now, since he works as a consultant, if he's able to do the projects, or if he's able to apply the concepts and the things that he did in competitions or seminars in his work life as well, he might be stimulated in a similar manner. So if he is able to get or derive the kind of things that he liked in these spheres in his work life, then they might not be a reason of his boredom, and we might have to think on the non-academic terms. So thinking upon his work and the things that he indulges in, is he able to stimulate himself on these grounds?
I think based on what you said, what would help you, the information that would help you would be that when we spoke to the consultant, he seemed to be pretty happy with the kind of projects that he's getting at BCG.
Hmm.
And since it's been only 2 months for him, it's a very steep learning curve for him as well. So he's really enjoying his work stint so far.
Understood. So, so that would, I would assume that the things that he derived pleasure from in terms of academics and subjects, he is able to enjoy in terms of his learning curve in the work sphere as well. So the kind of industry or the project that he is indulged in might be new to him and might be of interest. So there might be a reason that there was something other than academics which he did as a student, or things that he indulged in, for which he is not able to find time right now, and hence he might be bored. So would you want me to think on the non-academic terms?
Yes, I think it would be useful to think on the non-academic terms because one, what you do in academics and what you do at work is quite different, and
Hmm.
I don't think they're comparable. So that change is anyway going to be there, and that is not
Hmm.
the reason why he's understimulated. So we can keep academics aside and focus on the non-academic part.
Sure. Just give me a moment to think on those things.
Okay.
So thinking of the non-academic activities, so basically I'm trying to think on in terms of what all non-academic activities happen for a student in a college life. So they can either be, let's say, some sports that he used to play. There can be some literary activities that he did. Let's say he used to read or be part of a club, which he's not able to do now. There might be some cultural activities that he did, and there might be others. So what I mean by others is, let's say, just normally hanging out with friends and just chilling in his dorm, or going to places or traveling with friends. So these are the
Understood.
four buckets in
Can
which I'm
you
able to
um
think.
Can you think about this others in a more structured manner?
Sure. Give me a moment.
Can you walk me through what you're thinking?
Yeah. So when I talked about others, so the reasons that I or the structure which I made below it are basically the factors that changes once you switch from a student life to a professional life, or basically any part of your life. So these are the factors which basically influence you. All these are the changes that take place, right? And when I talked about friends, let's say there is certain kind of fun that an individual is able to derive in a friend circle, and that might not happen, or let's say some fun that he used to derive within the campus which might not happen in a workplace. So these are the four factors which I believe that changes. So when I write people, I mean your friend circle, or the people that you surround yourself with definitely changes. In a student life, you're surrounded with your friends. In a
Got
work
it.
life, there are your colleagues.
Hmm.
Place means that there is a certain attachment to the place. There are certain places you like to visit. There are certain places of your interest within the campus which you have been at since the last 1 year, and those go for a change. So maybe you're not able to derive as much comfort or interest in your workplace. Routine would mean the time that you have. So it might happen that as a student, somebody had more time on his hand to just relax, sit back, and maybe delve into things of his interest. And a time and routine might be going for a complete toss once he switches to a professional environment. So the
Hmm.
time or the routine can change. And the fourth factor I felt is changes within yourself. For example, your expectations of a work life might be different from what it really is. And so within yourself, without any of these other changes, mentally within yourself, how you see yourself might have changed, and that might also be causing the boredom. So do you want me to think on any of the on these lines?
Okay, I got what you're thinking, and maybe you can it's all of these are quite interrelated. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about when you say there's a change in routine, for the person.
Understood. So give me a moment.
Okay.
Before I try to jot down the points within the routine bucket, I
Hmm.
also wanted to know what does a typical day in his life look at this point in time.
Right. So, can you think about how a consultant's life could look like, just give a.
Yeah. So I would assume that if I think in terms of a week, so let's
Hmm.
say mostly he would be traveling on a Monday. Let's say if it's a client which requires traveling, so he might travel on a Monday to a client's place, and Monday to Friday would be the normal working days for him, and
Hmm.
Saturday Sunday I assume would be the weekend and would be off. If I talk about within a typical working day, the day would probably start at, let's say, 9 a.m. in the morning and would stretch to somewhere around 6 to 7 in the evening. That would be the working time.
Hmm.
If he is already outstation, there would be minimum traveling time. But if he is within a city, there might be another 1 hour that you can add for the travel. Post seven, there might be time that he has for himself. So he might sit back, have dinner, hang around a bit, and then he would probably sleep by 12 or 1 and then wake up the other day for the work. That is what I would assume.
Fair. Let me break this down for you. So, generally, on weekdays, like you mentioned, his life is divided into two parts. One is work, and second is the non-work. In the work part, 80% of his time is actually like on the desk. 10% goes into travel, and 10% goes into interacting with, colleagues, clients, and the others. During his non-work time, he generally watches a movie, and then he also sleeps for like about 6 hours, like I said. So that's how his weekdays look like. Over the weekends, he sleeps for longer hours. He does like cooking, so he cooks lunch sometimes. He plays golf sometimes now, and he also like socializes and meets his friends, so on and so forth.
Understood. Cool. I'll think on the routine terms now, considering that this is the routine that you have laid out.
Okay.
And also, just to clarify that there are no sports or any cultural things, for example, dancing or singing that he used to do as a student, which he is not able to find time for right for them now. So none of the academic reasons mentioned before that the other reason.
He did play a little bit of golf, on a regular basis, when he was doing his studying. Now
Hmm.
he does that, but not very often.
Understood. Understood. Sure.
And a similar thing goes for cooking as well. He had more time for his hobbies when he was, when he was a student. Now he doesn't have so much time, and he has whatever time he has, that's only over the weekends.
Got it. Got it. So I got a lot of clarity basis what you said. So on for his routine, um, so what I have been able to think of the case right now is that if I think about strictly from a work perspective, so work obviously as a student, what I mean about work is the studies that you do, is
Mm-hmm.
the primary reason why you went to that institute, right? So all of the interesting things that he did as a student and the subjects are also probably present as the in the job. That's why he chose that, and also he has been pretty much stimulated by the learning curve till now. So I wanted to basically break his time throughout the week and the weekend combined in terms of percentages as to how much he spends on work or the studies, how much he spends resting, and how much he spends in his other interests or other hobbies, which I have labeled as play. So let's say if I say that work right now, as you said, is 80% during the day, and I would assume that let's say he's not working over the weekend. So over the week, if I say on a particular week, let's say he has 60 to 70% as a work, and then he rests for let's say the other
Let
20%
me
and
give
only
these
10%.
numbers to you.
Sure.
On an average, um, as a student, the person worked for 50% of their time
Hmm.
as a student. They rested for 30%, and they had play time, which is break time, for 20%. As a
Hmm.
professional, work took up some more time, so it became 75%. Rest was still 30%, and the
Okay.
balance was play. Sorry,
Hmm.
65%, my bad. Work was 65%, and the balance was play. So you can consider this to be, um, you
Yeah.
know,
So I have a pretty clear idea about his life and the changes that have gone from a student to a professional. So what I've been able to understand that the work quotient of his life has increased. But then again, this is a professional setup. So that is a change that somebody would expect. And since you already mentioned that the learning curve is something that does stimulate him and he's able to learn more when he does devote time to his work, I would want to move ahead of this factor. And I would say that the work factor is not something contributing a lot now. However, I feel that the dip from 20% to 5% that have gone into his hobbies, which directly reflect that he is not able to find time for his hobbies right now, might be a cause of concern or might be the cause of reason, might be the cause of his boredom. So, is that a fair assumption?
I think that is a fair conclusion to come to. He doesn't get enough time, to devote to playing golf anymore, and doesn't get enough time to cook. And because of this, he feels that while he's enjoying his work, his life is becoming quite, monotonous, and he's not
Understood.
getting enough breaks, you know. So I guess maybe the problem did start out as boredom, but maybe it's boredom plus lack of play, or break, that is
Hmm.
causing this kind of monotony in their lives. So I think
Good.
that seems to be the cause of the problem. Maybe you can go ahead and quickly give some recommendations on how this could, be done better.
Sure. Give me a time to structure my thoughts.
Yeah. Okay, can you tell me what you're thinking?
Yeah. So I was basically thinking in terms of some short-term and long-term solutions.
Okay.
So in the short term, let's say he's facing boredom because of lack of time that he's able to give to his hobbies. So there might be an issue of time management here. Let's say that instead of on the weekdays he might be able to, let's say, structure his work better and might be able to front load a bit so that he is able to find more times on the evenings, or let's say he's able to find more time on a weekend to, let's say, devote to his hobbies. He might also might want to cut short on his sleep on the weekend to be able to find time for golf or cooking. So basically he might have to manage his time. Another short term solution can be finding a club, let's say within office or outside office, which are a group of people which might be interested in the same things, for example cooking or golf, and they might accompany each other to a golf course more often. And similarly, let's say within office there are activities and which he could indulge himself. For example, there is, let's say, a cooking competition or something in which he cooks for his colleagues on a particular day and is able to find time for that. On a long term basis, I'm able to think that he might have to think of an alternate career, which in which he's able to balance both his hobbies and his work related ambitions well. So that can be some of the reasons, some of the suggestions, sorry.
Okay, I think that sounds good. And I think we can close the case here. Thank you. So, we'll do a quick feedback on the case that we just solved. So, before I get into some pointers, do you want to tell me how you felt the case went?
Sure. So quite an unconventional case, right? And not a very not easy to find a structure to those. So initially, I did find a lot of difficulties in trying to structure this case. But yeah, as you kept on giving the information further, it did strike me as to what can be the different reasons. So yeah, quite interesting as in a different case that I did.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So obviously this case was quite unconventional, and it was a very open-ended case. Like this could go anywhere, like literally anywhere. So in
Mm,
situations like this, it becomes very important to be like very messy, to have options that cover all possibilities. Like
mm,
let's say when we started with why that person was bored,
mm,
first thing that would come to my mind was that was he bored of existing activities, or was he bored of some activities that are new to their life? And then we
mm,
probably get on to, okay, there is something new happening to their life, and then we get on to, okay, the person now became a consultant at BCG and something has changed now, and it went through that route. But there could be other possibilities and alternatives. So it is very important to think about all possibilities and structure them in a way that you don't miss out any of them. So that is
mm,
one
mm,
thing. One thing that I really liked that you did was that you um, clarified what boredom meant, because boredom could mean different things to different people. This could, like in this situation, even if I call it stress, it would mean a different thing to somebody, and different thing to somebody else. So in an unconventional case or even otherwise, when there is subjective terms used, it is always good to clarify what the definition of that term is. So in this case, it was good that you clarified or you gave your assumption as to what you meant by boredom, which is lack of stimulation, so on and so forth. So that was great. One more feedback that I think I noticed was that when you're doing an unconventional case, the interviewer does not know what you're thinking. So it's very important
mm,
you first tell like a very broad approach to the interviewer that, okay, this is what you're thinking. In your case, what you were trying to get through was that, okay, there was some existing life that was there. These are the 10 things that he did in his existing life. And now there is a new life that the person has. And these are the 10 things that the person does and what has changed. So if you would have explained this it's good to explain this in the beginning so that um, the interviewer knows what you're thinking overall. And then maybe you can get into the buckets. Also, for the buckets, it's always nice to list down the subheadings first, and then see
Hmm.
if you want to explain them. Sometimes the headings are self-explanatory, so you can save some time there. And if you try to explain all headings, sometimes you may lose the patience and attention of the interviewer, and you would not want that. So that is another thing. One thing that I really liked was that after you got a gist of what was happening, you decided to put it into numbers. So you asked what is the percentage of time that the person spent on work, rest, and play as a student and then as a professional. So I think that was a very good approach to put numbers to a very subjective thing. So I think that was great. Coming to the recommendations that you gave, again, while this was a little bit of a bucket listing approach, it was great, structured into short term and long term. But you could possibly think of, a more structured way of putting in your recommendations. It would mean that, okay, does the person need to change something in their existing lives? Does the person need to change something in their, new activities that they're doing, and maybe take it forward from there. There could also be other things, like the reason that we identified here was that he was not getting enough time, play time or break time. One question that I would have had in such a situation would be, so where is this 15% of play time getting reduced from? Is it getting reduced from weekdays? Is it getting reduced from weekends? How is it
Hmm.
changing? And then I would
Hmm.
probably structure my recommendations. So obviously these are all subjective things, but these are some things that I thought would be useful when other people are also solving this case. So yeah, I think overall it was a great case, and I hope this is useful for everyone who's preparing. And we will be back with another case next week. Thank you. Bye bye.